But if I'm describing human design, I like to describe it as like a grandfather clock, something that is massive in itself, but really works in tandem with all of the pieces, with all the gears and the wheels. And it all works together as parts. It really shows us that somebody may be a wheel or a cog, or somebody may be the hand of the clock, but essentially to get something out of it, you all have to work together.
I don't know if you watch. I'll get started, I promise. But I don't know if you watch Abbott Elementary. But the teacher. Oh my gosh, I can't even think Barbara. But she has like the little phone chain she wears. I know in like
Yeah.
one episode.
And then she was like, she says, always keep it on the chain. I remember that.
All right. Okay. So hi Jameer. Thank you so much for
Wow.
being here. How are you today?
Doing well. And how are you?
I'm doing good. I mean, honestly, it's funny, like trying to jump in from banter into an actual structured interview, but I'm doing good today. It's really good to see you. I can't remember the last time we saw each other, but I'm really
Yeah.
happy that you're here today.
That's great. Yeah, I think we on the reunion. That's
Yeah.
when we. Yep, that was like
Yeah.
even like a month ago or something. Time has gone by so fast.
What is time anyway? So
Yeah.
it makes sense. So, Jameer, today I know that I wanted to bring you in to talk to listeners about human design. I mention human design pretty often on my show. I am often dropping that I'm a manifesting generator. And I know for me that learning about that has really impacted how I move and flow through life. And it just really has made such a difference. So, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you in. And before we get all into that, I would love for you, Jameer, to introduce yourself. Tell us about who you are, what you do. I don't call it work, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, just
Yes.
introduce yourself to us.
Well, hi podcast crew and people listening. My name is Jameer. I am a creative consultant. So what I do is I utilize spirituality and like divination as well as human design, and my background in psychology and symbology, as well as coaching to really help creatives and non-creatives alike work on the process. Within our world, we really are focused on the end goal and really kind of what is the outcomes that we don't give ourselves time to process or even work on the process. So I work with people to symbolically to look at things that are going on in their mind and the creative endeavors that they're going through like a garden, and really look at, where you have things planted, what has weeds, what is overgrown, what needs to be tended to. And a lot of that is giving rest as well. So you guys have time to kind of pull yourself out of the working life, but that's something I work on, and especially adding in divination as well, to really look at the cycles that you're in and ask the questions that are going to bring change rather than stalling. And that's where I'm at now. Besides being a creative myself, I also do a whole bunch. I have podcasts myself and a whole bunch of other things that I'm doing, but it's really this thought of working with creators in the community, aiding them, and then also giving and ideas. I know you talk about it, but I'm a manifestor. I'm a 3-5 manifestor. And
Mhm.
so with my design, I'm really there to impact, not to respond or to really be the doer, but to be the kind of spark, the one that like turns on the light. So a lot of that is what I bring into my practice, and a lot of that is what I work with clients on, because a lot of them are generators that they're almost missing the dreaming aspect of it. And so I work really in tandem and partnership with them to bring that back.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And okay, I feel like obviously there were so many things I really wanted to maybe like branch off on, but okay, you got me because I'm a manifesting generator, and the more I've been doing this work, I've been thinking, okay, I can really speak to manifesting generators. But the way you just said it, you being a manifester and knowing that you can collaborate with generators to help them to see that, okay, it's literally giving me chills. I can't really put it in, but I love
Yeah.
that perspective. I don't think I've seen anyone come from that perspective before in this kind of work.
Yeah. I know even as a man, I'm still to say too, is we're usually going to be the initiator.
Yeah.
And so I have found myself in asking or seeing that as well to be like, oh, well, there's not something I can look at to make a template. Like I have to create myself. And so that's what I've been doing. I've been
Yeah.
doing a lot of work, even with AI too, because it always helps that it is something that I have to create a blueprint for so that others can take it and actually implement their own lives into it. So I love working with manifesting generators and and generators, but I also find that MGs really kind of have the same wave of thought that I do because there is some type of manifesting energy in there that when I'm working with them and we're in partnership, it's almost like we can go back and forth, but then they can also take what I'm saying and drive it into an area or start creating something. Usually
Yeah.
when it's a whole bunch of manifestors, it's just a cacophony of ideas being thrown around and no one actually taking it and doing something that it's like,
Yeah.
it's great to work with generators that will pull it out of the air and kind of actually bring it to reality and do it and have that responsible.
Hmm.
Um, I know that when we started or I was kind of reading over what we were going to do for the day, when I think of living in alignment with human design, especially with the kind of stuff we're talking about earlier, it's really about honoring your chart. I know that there are some things when you notice your chart or when you see your chart, you kind of want to react negatively to. But if it's a path forward, I consider it a path forward really about finding your higher self. It's more about honoring all those parts. And a lot of that is shadow work, especially when you first see your chart. A lot of that is going into what your chart is telling you and how you're living by it. Because a lot of the times when you go to honor and live by your chart, you've got to let go of all of these things that were holding you. And that's a tough one. Oh, I'm sorry. I think you're on mute. Oh, you're still on mute. Hold on.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Like it just kept coming back.
So, okay.
This is actually perfect because so a lot of people don't know this, but I actually put bloopers in my show. So that's going to be perfect. That's
I
going to be
love it.
perfect.
We've got a gag reel. Perfect.
Literally. So I
Oh,
wanted to mention, I know you talk about kind of like that cringe and resistance when you seeing your chart. You mentioned shadow work. I mean, that's like the immediate cringe word, and most people will like, I don't want, no, absolutely not.
yeah.
So Jameer, I do want to kind of like take it back a little bit. I know that, well, you and I met. I want to share real quick how you and I met.
Yeah.
We met in the Wholehearted Life Coaching certification taught by Sharon Eskandani. Super amazing being, super amazing program. And
Everyone check
I
it out.
had, absolutely. And I had the really amazing privilege of actually being coached by you and working with you. So,
Yeah.
first and foremost, thank you for that. But it's also another plug for the program. It's really great because one of the scariest things to me was doing peer coaching, but it's also one of the most beautiful things, not only in your own challenge and self growth, but getting to experience everyone's different, unique coaching styles and their interests. So, like for me with you, it was like you had this knowledge of human design and your inclusion of it in your program, which obviously I have like a huge love for it.
Yeah.
So, and you really just kind of already, even what you were sharing, you started talking about these different types, different energies, different ways that they impact us and how we can move through the world and how we even work together with one another. So, if we kind of go back a little bit for anyone who is actually new to human design, how would you describe it to them? Like, if somebody just said, what is it?
So if I'm describing human design, usually for me, I like to describe it as like a grandfather clock, something that is massive in itself, but really works in tandem with all of the pieces that are in the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Like essentially with all the gears and the wheels, and you have the faceplate with numbers, and also the most times if it's older, a cuckoo, a bird that's in the telling time that it's like it all works together as parts, and it really shows us that somebody may be a wheel or a cog, or somebody may be the hand of the clock, but essentially to get something out of it or to really kind of know what it is, you all have to work together. And so where I have it is I know that I usually kind of really state manifestors as this cuckoo bird. And not to say that it's at the top of the clock or it's better, but it's really the informer. It is there that is chirping that's giving you the time key or the actual time and what's happening.
Yeah.
And then as you go down with like things like projectors and manifesting generators and generators, it's more of like the time facing the hands and then the gears that are moving things, because generators really are there to build, excuse me, are there to build. And so when we look into human design, really almost 70% of the world is generated. And I think that that's really what is lending to our like capitalist economy is that they're just on the go consistently. They have the energy to build, but with no plan behind it. They're just consistently building, which is kind of where we have this success in capitalism.
Yeah.
That's also where I work at as a manifestor is to say, hey, where are you getting the rest? Where are we actually stopping and pivoting? Because a lot of generators will just build and without even the manifesting side of it, they're not building a better dream. They're just building on top of it. And so that's what also, I mean, even still relating to the clock, it's just that thought that every piece needs to move together to really inform or even let people know what's happening or even have something done. So you can also see human design really as synergy. If you're in a business workplace, you can see it as like really kind of cohesive teamwork, but it's also saying here, your human design chart is showing you exactly the place you need to be. You don't need to be doing all these other things or appeasing all these other people. You need to be here. And this is where you fit in. This is the block you fit in the Tetris.
Right.
So it's really just about human design, I guess I would say, is about identifying and knowing your block and then also seeing how it fits in inside of the kind of Jenga pieces.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Kudos on this analogy, okay? Because it was beautiful. It was perfect. And in my mind, it's literally like my own gears are going like, that makes sense, okay? The grandfather
Yeah.
clock can't work without all these gears, and the cuckoo is very important.
Everything in the clock is important. And I
Exactly.
know that if you take one piece out, the whole thing falls apart. So that's really kind of the thought.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned this one of the one of the stats being that, about 70% of the population, because that is huge. And exactly what you said, that contributes so much to our capitalistic nature, but also just kind of this, excuse me, also kind of the what we call the norm, what we're used to doing. And then when we find that other 30% of us where that just doesn't work, or even like you said, when the generators get burnt out and they don't rest, we don't know what to do because we don't know anything else outside of that. So I love that this is literally like a tool, a guidebook to literally showing us, I'm going to plug my own show name, but literally
Yeah.
showing us how we can live life differently because
Ding,
it's
ding, ding.
so good.
Yeah. Look, that is so true. And when I explain it to people, because I've always been into astrology and that spiritual side. That when I came first with astrology and started like kind of doing some readings and letting and telling people their charts and things like that, a lot of it wouldn't resonate, or they would be really stuck on something and be like, "No, that's not me."
Mm-hmm.
But human design incorporates really astrology, I Ching, which is like a Chinese divination source, and also things like quantum mechanics and quantum physics, excuse me. And it really allows you to see your whole chart, whereas with astrology, people are still focused on their big three, and they're like, oh, well, my sun, moon, and rising. And it's like you have so many other planets that are affecting this. And mind you, the planets are also aligned in human design as well, and so they incorporate that into your chart. But if people are able to get kind of a better grasp on it than they do astrology, they're more open to it.
Mm,
It also doesn't have a lot of the stigma behind it of astrology.
yeah.
And astrology, I love astrology. There's nothing bad about it, but when there's already a built up stigma on it, it's very hard to break through that first and then teach, where
Hmm.
human design doesn't have to go through that hurdle.
Exactly. Exactly. That's such a great point. So, with that being said, I think that, I mean, human design isn't necessarily like new, but,
Yeah.
like what you said, it's a little newer, I guess, to us than astrology. So, with that, like, when did you get introduced to human design? When did you start learning and incorporating it into your life?
So definitely during COVID. I mean, we're still in COVID, but I would say the beginning phases of COVID when I really to rest it was a thought of, okay, I've had the rest now, I can pivot. And where do I want to pivot to? And so during that time, I was taking certificates. I took one in the background of symbology that really led me down to reading runes and tarot. That it was like, okay, well, maybe I'll step back into astrology. And as I stepped back in, I was like, I kind of want a different base. So human design really worked for me because, like I said before, it's a combination of so many things that's what really spoke to me. That I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I'm not just stepping into astrology. Like this is also includes I Ching and it also includes really like gates and channels, and all these different things that, like I said, like a cuckoo clock, all came, or like a grandfather clock, really all came
Right.
together and meshed very well. And then I learned I was a manifestor. That has taken a whole bunch of time to really learn
Yeah.
because it's only about 9% of the world that are manifestors. And so there aren't that many of us, but where we're at is often very kind of opposite of a generator.
Mm-hmm.
And so what has helped me is I'm part of a manifesting community that really goes into things and gives workshops as to how to work as a manifester. Um, Especially when you get all these business pitches and how-to guides, even from Instagram and around, are mostly made by generators. So they
Mm-hmm.
don't really fit.
Yeah.
So being a manifester was having to learn that most things that people are like, you should try are not going to fit for me.
Yeah.
And then also having to be like, well, now I got to find my group. And so it really, like during COVID, it was that pull down of, okay, well, I'm still trying to find a community, and now I'm furthering myself into what community I am.
Mm-hmm.
And human design has been great for that because the community within human design, not just manifestors, is very open.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you have to honor your chart, it kind of, well, I guess heals yourself inwards to project outward with grace and openness. So I think that's
Yeah.
really,
That is awesome. I honestly don't think I've thought about looking for my own community, not just within human design, but
yeah.
within my type. I love that. And especially like for you, I know when we look at it, 9% is also a very big number when you're looking at billions of people.
Yes.
But it still is also, it's still a smaller a part of the demographic, especially when it comes
Yeah.
to like your location and things like that. So I love that. I love that I'm learning more about being a manifester from you because being that that's part of my type with the manifesting generator, I know that I can execute. And I also have times where I'm very like pretty much full of ideas. But I think that there was something you mentioned about being a manifester, and I'm like creating the blueprint. I was like, I
Yeah.
struggle with that because I get so tired of my human design stuff telling me like, you're meant to make a new path and you're meant to make it even though you've never seen it. And I'm like, says who? Because my brain is not singing that. My brain
Yeah.
is like, give me a template, give me something, and I will make it better. I will change it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to, you can go ahead. Go ahead if you want to.
No, I was just gonna add into that
Yeah.
is that what I really try to focus with manifesting generators and with generators as well is that you guys are a generator. You're meant to take the blueprint. Like you're not. I know, yes, you can be a builder, but in the thought of being an architect, it's harder. And
A lot
so
harder.
so you have to really almost force yourself into that side because even manifesting generators are still generators. They're just generators that are able to do something a little more expansive with their energy. So you have to kind of still honor that that you are going to need a manifestor on your side. A lot of times when you were talking about even 9% being big, manifestors still have a lot of trauma. Since the world is really generators, when you have a manifestor, all they want to do is create blueprints. Like that's something that
Yeah.
I love to do. So then once you do, a manifestor really needs support in everything they do. But when we've been in this capitalist age, a manifestor can create a blueprint and then somebody's response to them can be like, oh, well, you should sell that. Like you should, like they put on the hat of capitalism and they're like,
Yeah.
well, you can market that some way, right?
Right.
And then that to a manifestor is really almost like crippling because it's like I've used my energy to create the blueprint. I've done what my manifesting energy is doing, but now some generators like, oh yeah, you should do that. You should actually do that. It's like, no, it's like, that's not support. Support should be like, oh, I love that. I'm gonna take it and run with it. I'll be the person that's taking on the baton. And that's why I also say it's a lot about cooperative teamwork, especially if you think about running and track and like kind of handing off the baton. It is that thought of you do your stretch, you hand off the baton, somebody takes it over. And it's not this hyper individualism where it's like you're running the whole,
Right.
you're doing the whole thing. It's
Right.
on you.
Right. Jameer, you have amazing analogies.
That's I try to be a very kind of metaphor person. I think that that is also part of my human design as well. Is that for me as a manifestor to also get support, it means that you have to understand where I'm coming from, and so I have really kind of, and especially with my background in symbology, is to say, where can I have a root centered thinking that it's not linear, it's not like kind of like consecutive or congruent, but it's the sort of like a root in which everything is connected, even if it's 7, 8 degrees of separation, it's still going to get to me at some point.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, where can I explain things that still kind of far off, still will get my meaning in place?
Yeah, exactly. So we've mentioned, pretty much a lot about manifestors, manifesting generators, generators. Speaking of that, for those who are maybe very new to human design, these are the types which so I do want to let you be the person sharing, but
No, it's okay.
when it comes to human design, I know that getting your human design chart can be overwhelming at first, especially if
Yes.
you're brand new to it. But I know that someone once told me like one of the best ways is to kind of go down, maybe it's from top to bottom. And I know like one of the very first things you get is your type, and that's one of like the best ways to get started in there. Could you
Yeah.
tell us more about that and like tell us about the types, other
Yeah,
types?
we can start with types. I would just say like as a whole, when you're getting something, you would definitely want to get a human design basic reading, which includes your type, your strategy, which we can go into it as well. Your inner authority. It'll also give you your centers, but centers and kind of adding those gates and channels is a little more advanced. But those things are important, as well as your incarnation cross. And the basic one that I give out to people who come to me for readings, it also includes what your motivation is, your view and perspective on your life, and then also the environment that really helps you. But as we go back to types, we'll start with the 5 types of human design, which are manifestors, generators, manifesting generators, projectors, and reflectors. And so we talked about the other two, well, generators and manifesting generators. But projectors and reflectors are also kind of in that 30%.
Yeah.
And so projectors really are not so much projecting their feelings, but they're projectors as a movie projector is how I usually describe it.
Mhm.
And so they make great guides and leaders because they often are projecting out the traits that are great for you to see, really, like a movie. So they're able to guide you and lead you into the right path for you because they can project out your best traits or even worse traits that may need to be changed.
Yeah.
It's kind of a double-edged sword there. And then reflectors are very interesting because they're only in 1% of the world,
Right.
and they just reflect back the energy of the world. So if you kind of take it in a kind of project management or business sense, the manifestors is the idea. The generators and manifesting generators are the ones that are creating the idea. And the projectors themselves are like the managers that make sure everything's still running smoothly. They're able to project any of the troubles or successes and then share them. And so they're kind of the managerial mid-managed section. And then the reflectors are the ones that are getting feedback. When the project is done, they're the ones pushing back out what the energy is. And then you kind of really start the cycle over again with the manifester of getting that idea from the feedback. I know that a manifester I work with, we've really been in this talk of cycles of saying, where can perfection for a manifester look like? Putting something out, getting the feedback, and then kind of having that deal loop to see how you get this initiating energy. I know a lot of times with manifestors, they can come off as brash, closed. And so it's really up to them to inform and up to me to inform about things
Yeah.
before I'm doing them.
Yeah.
but that also leads into your strategy. So
Yeah.
the strategy for a manifester is to inform. Now that could easily just be, telling somebody that you're doing something. It doesn't have to look like a whole essay or something of why. Most oftentimes, it really shouldn't even include the why. It should just be like, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Because then often what comes back to them and what is the generators and manifesting generator strategy is to respond. So there are people that really are very bubbly and very open because the fact is that they need to constantly respond to something. So if they are people are, if they are, excuse me, I guess, social butterflies, then that attracts more energy to respond to.
Okay.
So they're very open, where manifestors are absolutely closed, where they have to absolutely state their feelings because most people cannot read them. They're an absolute block there.
Okay.
And then you get to projectors, which have to wait for the invitation. So they have to be invited into these things. A lot of times I know my projector friends that I have some trouble with invitations, either knowing if it's the right invitation that's really lighting them up, or, if it's an invitation.
Hmm.
I like to say, really, for projectors, to really know what your invitations, because sometimes even like facial movement or like something you pick up body language wise could be an invitation for you to step in. Now, it just depends on the person and depends on what's happening. But I know that we talked about it in coaching, that kind of
Hmm.
looking at those body responses can kind of say, oh, maybe I should ask a question about that. And I think that's something that really could help for projectors to know that invitations can come from a lot of different places,
Yeah.
and a lot of different people, but to really know what the invitation is that you should get up and go to. Because once they do, they're able to project the greatest light, but they
Yeah.
just have to be invited to it. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because when you're waiting for something, you often want to just take anything that comes to you first instead of
Hmm.
the right thing. So that's often kind of interesting to look at there. But with reflectors, they run on a lunar cycle, which I think is very nice to kind of have reflectors or discuss reflectors in that way, because it also brings in a spiritual element that most of us kind of really run on this like full moon, new moon cycle too, as your spiritual to of, manifesting and releasing, but also kind of in this thought of feedback. So with reflectors, it's really waiting up to like 28 to 30 days, depending on the lunar cycle there, and seeing how your body reacts to it. How I know that when I discuss things with one of my reflector friends, it's often that like, she'll have to experience things. And then once she's experienced them, she's got to give herself this like break period to really digest and say, how is that making me feel? Is that making me want to go up and do more of my goals now that that energy's in me? Or does that make me want to retreat and like actually be in solitude or things like that? It's really the ultimate feedback that you can give yourself, like really self-awareness with the reflectors.
Hmm.
And then when we're talking about authority, if we want to just kind of give a basis for it, there are, I think, I'm pretty sure there's four or five. I have notes too on the side that I'm like, "Ooh."
Yeah. No, of
um,
course. I'm taking, by the way.
so there is sacral authority, emotional authority, splenic authority, ego authority, self-projected authority, and environmental. Now, environmental is usually in the reflectors because it really says, oh, where can I find my inner fire, inner decision, inner self based on where I am living and
Yeah.
what energy is around me there. But most people have emotional authorities. I have an emotional authority.
I do.
Um, yeah. And so we work in waves, especially in emotional waves. Now, mind you, a wave can be anything from sine to like, and essentially how fast it goes. But when you're riding the emotional wave, the best comment I've heard is to just sleep on it, to, give it a day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times where I will see something, especially even through Instagram or when somebody's like marketing the course, that I'm like, oh, I love that. That could be great. I'm already thinking of all these things that could happen. And I'm like, oh, okay, I need to wait for a second. I need to sleep on it and then get back up and see how my emotions are when I think about it again the next day. Because usually when the energy flows in, I'm like, oh, I can do so much with it. I can do all these things, especially with a manifestor. As you move it, we can move into centers. Manifestors do not have their sacral center
Okay.
open, which should be closed. So they don't have this kind of battery like the generators are manifesting generators.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also why they're the blueprint. They're not the actual doer. But as we still move back into authority, we'll move over to sacral authority, which is a gut response. With the sacral, it is the center that is really kind of giving you these guttural responses
Mm-hmm.
that it's like, okay, listen to what's happening. And it can even be, they often say the sounds that you're making. Even if you don't say a no, but the sound you're kind of making is already
Yeah.
like it's like, how can you listen to that instead of being like, oh, no is the response? And like, no, those should be the things you're looking for, especially if you get ecstatic a lot of times with sacral authorities. If something comes up to you and you're a manifesting generator or generator, and your response is to be like elated even in the face without
Yeah.
saying an answer, that's something you should follow with sacral authority there. And then with splenic authority, with the spleen is really kind of more of your, I would almost relate to a fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
It's also this kind of area that is instinctual. And that's not really the gut, but it's also kind of like this knee jerk thing. And so when you have that authority, sometimes you can have just moments of just snap judgment that you're like, okay, this may not be good,
Yeah.
but you have to also honor. That's what also honoring your chart does, because if somebody doesn't have a splenic authority, but they're giving you advice, you may also be conditioning yourself in the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And with splenic authorities, and you're supposed to kind of make this kind of spontaneous or kind of instinctual response, if you're already having somebody else's voice in your head, it really almost hinders you from kind of living your own path. And with ego authority, the decisions come from ego or the will center, which is one of the nine centers there, but it comes also from, I can really kind of add with ego is will, but also just, so a lot of these ego authorities really make kind of judgments and decisions from their thought of desire and the thought of what they want.
Okay.
So it really comes into the thought of, okay, well, I see that, I want it, get it, boom. Like, and so that's kind of making the decision. And it's definitely the opposite of an emotional, because it's saying, even in that first burst of emotion, I can actually go for it instead of having to wait, which I have definitely been finding myself on that side of being an ego where I'm like, I'm emotional authority, have to honor my decisions. I can't just jump right in and think
Right.
the guns blazing. Can't do that. And I already went over environmental with reflectors, but with the centers, I feel it kind of fair. I don't think, oh, yes, can hold up. No. I will show you my
You
show.
need to share?
Yeah, I can. I just feel like showing the centers works out a little better.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a new platform now that I'm like, oh, let's get this together.
No problem.
Dirt from the side, and I can't really, I can zoom it. So let's see my so these are the nine centers. So you have the Anja, which is really above the head, but it's this thought of source and this connection to the higher source and power.
Yeah.
And the thought of chakras, it's really the Anja is kind of the crown. And then you have the head, which is taking in from the source and also kind of giving you the ideas. When you get the energy, you kind of get the idea for that. And then here you have the throat, which is about communicating the languages they're giving, and also how you're speaking to the masses and to yourself. And then we go down here. This is the ego. And the ego is the will center, like we talked about before, kind of the want and desire center. And then we have here on this side, the right hand side is the solar plexus. And the solar plexus is the emotional center. It is where we have our thought of emotionality and our emotional intelligence. And so looking at those centers when you do a full human design reading. You can also show how your emotions show up. And over on this side is the spleen. And so that is, like I said, the fight or flight, in this kind
Yeah.
of instinctual area. And then down here, these three, I'm going to leave them all up, but I also really consider these three, even since they're closed for me, so I understand them a little, I mean, so be open for me, so I understand them a little more, is really kind of our root stock of kind of who we are. So
Mhm.
we have here, the one I have there on is the G center, and that really looks into our identity. It looks into our identity beyond just kind of what we identify in gender as and things like that, but it also looks at sexuality and how fluid we are. Usually, when this is closed, most people are kind of really fixed because their identity is something that they're defining, especially within their chart. When it is open like this, it is more fluid. I know that it is related to an astrology perspective. For me, I am a very mutable person. I'm very changing. So my identity is really open to the energy of chameleons and blend through things.
Yeah.
And this is the sacral center. The sacral center is really your energy and your battery center. For generators, manifesting generators, they're going to have this closed. They're going to be able to pull energy from themselves and really give themselves that drive. For me, while it's open, I am somebody that, excuse me, needs to have people that have active energy and are spreading it around so that I can get that energy. For me, it's not like I have an unlimited amount of energy. I am somebody that's like, okay, I got a task done. A nap is definitely in order. Like a nap was rewarded. And so that's usually what happens with the sacral being open. It's you don't have that actual energy that you can pull from in yourself. You're pulling from around. And then down here is the root. So similar to the root chakra, it's the spot of kind of having a base, but it's also this kind of pressure center.
Yeah.
So with the base, it's really kind of pressuring the other areas to say, are we doing exactly what we need to do? Are we following our values? I kind of see it as a little bit of like a duty base
Yeah.
to say, as I honor myself, where is the pressure either subsiding because I'm following my path, or where is it increasing because maybe I'm doing exactly what I need or I need to value. So looking at that root center really can look into, what is giving you pressure towards needing to do something or saying that you should
Yeah.
be doing something. I think that when it is closed, really looks at your shoulds and
Mhm.
woulds, and really focuses on them. Where for me, I'm like, I guess I should have done it, but it's open. So, maybe I'll get it done at another time. It doesn't give me
Yeah.
like intense pressure to get it done.
Mm.
But those are the centers there. And throughout your chart, when you get a basic reading, it's going to include this chart with, I'll zoom out.
And just so you guys know, like
Yeah.
Mir is showing, like you're doing a beautiful job explaining this audibly, but for anyone listening who can't see this, he's
Yeah.
showing what the human design chart looks like, which when you first look at it, you see kind of like a half silhouette of a person with all of the centers, right? Is that what you said? The
Yes.
centers.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it's with the centers, and then if
Mhm.
you also are listening audibly, it also includes what planets are really affecting those centers as well.
I did not know planets. See, that's where like my mind was just like, I don't know.
Yeah, so that's where it also really incorporates astrology as well, because with these, so on both sides of the chart that you see, there is on the left hand side your design, which is also your unconscious traits that you have that actually really, as you tap into them, it's more of like tapping into shadow work to tap into your design. And then on the right hand side, it has another chart as well, or another area as well that shows your personality. And this is what you can see outwards, what people see outwards. Mind you, people also kind of really tap into your design if they know how to get deeper, or they are people that have kind of this empathic energy. but most people and yourself really notice your personality. So when I do readings with people, I often look at their unconscious design, which is on the left hand side, to really say, okay, well, are you actually tapping into some of these things? Because these things are what's going to help you grow, because unconsciously they're what you want to
Yeah.
happen, or what can drive you. So I look into those as well. Excuse me. Something that really helps is knowing what goes on with the planets, what's happening with the planets, what their symbolism behind them is. And when I talk about abundance with people, I look into their Jupiter, because it's the thought of expansion, it's the thought of bringing in abundance. And so as you look at your chart, you're going to have to know the planetary symbols, um, as you do the chart, but that's also kind of learning the whole thing. But with unconscious Jupiter and with the programs that I have, they often give this kind of background knowledge. They give this thought of where your gate is and what is really aligning and what you should be doing to align to bring your highest power to yourself. I'll just share my chart to have a background of something that happens. But with my Jupiter, it's in the gate 40. So it's knowing when to leave something or when to really look and take stock of what value something is giving you. If it needs to be changed. So as I honor that, it really kind of speaks to what I do as a consultant. I'm looking into, what gives you this value in your life and what is nutritionally fulfilling you besides your body. As I plug my own podcast in there, but I've always been this kind of nutritional value for the soul rather than the body type of person. And that's really just honoring my design. I'm going to you're on mute again.
I'm trying to mute myself so I don't have all this background noise.
It's okay.
But I love that. See, this right here, that was just like a great way for anyone listening to see what I mean when I say Jameer is like your wealth of knowledge it was amazing. Like it was mind blowing. And like for me, like someone who's already interested in this, like I was just like, teach me because when I tell you, like I would see that chart and I saw all those symbols, I was like, listen, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I can't do this. So also feel free to plug your podcast. Also, your human design. Do you do readings for people? Because I need to know how
I
to.
do. I do. I actually, to be honest, that was something within the last, like, maybe 4 or 5 months, I really kind of came into my own and decided that I was going to. But yes, I do give readings. And so what I also do is give basic readings. People are able to reach out to me through my website. My website is actually a Canva website, which, I'd recommend if you're just starting and you're getting out, if you just need a landing page, do Canva.
Nice.
So, I have reworked it, but, the company that I created is called Omega Creative. And so I don't know where to post it. Maybe we'll add a link in because I
Oh,
feel like if I
it'll be in the show description, the show notes.
perfect. We'll do that there because I know that spelling it out right now is going to just be like spelling your name. So yeah, but on my site, you can actually just look at it and ask for a reading. I can give basic ones, but then I also have a 38 page like in-depth one
Nice.
that I'm giving that I am offering, I should say, and that will go into it. And that's kind of a DIY. So like if you don't want to sit with me and actually do a full reading, kind of some of the questions you're looking for, then you can just kind of get that. And it'll allow you to, know yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, but I'll definitely, we'll get a reading. Well, not on this interview.
Right, right. No, no.
This interview, I could do a whole lot. We'll give a reading later. But I love going into it with people because it
Yeah.
really is as you go into your design, you really kind of to take stock, as we talked earlier, of what you actually value. Because a lot of things, what you value may be hurting you back. maybe holding you back, excuse me. I often talk about it because with capitalism, especially since I have friends that are international that are here now in this turmoil of if their visas are going to work or not.
Right.
We're gonna date this episode based on this. So yeah,
Very important time in history, guys.
yeah, really. But they are just so kind of uncertain that it's like, okay, well, where can I help? But it leads to that. I think that if anyone wants to learn human design, go ahead. I think that there are a lot of basic books that are online that are really helpful. And then also, there are so many people with blogs and everything that are willing to give advice that I think that people should just look it up. I mean, Instagram is kind of also where I started too,
Right.
to get like a carousel of things and be like, oh, this one really matches me. Lead you into it. Instagram can also be a teacher as much as a distraction. Yeah,
True. It's just all about how you use the tool.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And I know that's pretty much where I am. Still kind of on the Instagram. I've done my human design chart. I've done some research, and I
Yeah.
remember even trying to get down to like the channels and getting that. For me, I know that I can get overwhelmed, especially with a lot of information. And also, I guess honoring my design is that I think like I'm lit up by human design, but not fully enough to be able to
Mhm.
dive into that. Something else I could probably go on like a research binge, but also I'm also very much a skimmer when I'm reading. So I'm like, I'm not at a point where I can sit here and digest all this information.
Yeah.
Just give me the basics. I did want to ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
When you were going through and explaining strategies and authority, do the authorities do they apply directly to each type? Like, does each type have a specific authority, or is that one kind of more varied?
That is definitely more varied. So yeah, and that's also what I think really makes it very interesting. Your inner authority is yours, and it is not that you actually may attract more people that are in your authority. So you may find that everyone around you kind of has one
Yeah.
authority, but it is different for everybody's chart. So, and also what I really love about human design wise is that right now I'm in consultation with another 3-5 manifestor with an emotional authority, but we also have very different charts. Like our different centers are close in the line, and it is very interesting to meet somebody that has some of the same profile kind of aspects that I have that's
Yeah.
completely different. Because we'll be on like in tandem with some things, and then other things it's like, oh nope, I do this way, I do it this way. It's like it really brings in a lot because also too, if I remember, you're a 1-3 manifesting generator, correct?
Okay, you remember
Don't
that?
remember. Yeah, well, I actually keep a lot of 1-3s around me as well because I think when you think about that with the profile, you often keep a lot of people that are your profile line together. I know we didn't go over profile lines with those. Let me just see, let me get all those profile lines here for you. But with profile lines, it's 1-3, 2. I have to go over it again. I am somebody that has way too much going on that I have to have notes in front of me at all times. And
Yeah.
this goes out for people to have your notes with you.
Yeah.
Don't be that person. Have your notes. But with the profile lines, there's 12 of them. And they often work as well, like if you were going to do composite charts, like you
Hmm.
do in astrology as well, to see if you really work well together.
Yeah.
There are composites for profiles as well that often work well together. But I say too is that when you have your lines, it's usually two numbers, and those are why you usually say the first number is kind of what you see outwardly and what you kind of project outwardly, and then the secondary line is usually this inward sense, something you also may feel, but you don't also often project it. Like, so for me, it's a 3-5. It's usually called martyr, heretic, but you can explain it a lot of different ways. I usually explain it as the experimenter. And I still like the heretic. I just think that with the 5 line as a heretic, it is this line that people look to you for the problem solving. They
Right.
kind of look to you for the answer. So I feel it almost as like, well, when I utilize my three liner, this experimental liner, I'm often just sitting abroad or I'm trying something new or I'm just doing something different. People will often utilize me as almost a podium or put me on a pedestal and say, "Oh, we can go to them for this question, or we can go to them." It's the fact that my three line gains experiences that
Yeah.
others now utilize me for the answers because I have so much experience.
Yeah.
So with you with a 1-3, you are the investigator and the martyr, and so it's this thought that outwards you're just like what you're doing. You're skimming. You're being the investigator first, but then also people come to you to try something new. And so I think you handling that or what makes a 1-3 very interesting is that if they take something that they've investigated and really go into it and really just experiment with it, people are going to want those answers. And I think that there's so many things that you deal with the ghost hunting stuff that you do and go into. I think it's so interesting that I'm like, investigative wise, it would never have come up. But you're the person that's like, I checked it out. I like it. I'm behind it. And then I've tried all these other things that are a part of it. And you're able to share that. I think that's great.
I love that you mentioned that because it's literally so random, and I'm like, but I love that you took that interest that I gave you and turned it on me into like a very mini reading. It encouraged me, like, yeah, if you're interested, do it. People want it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
They
Take what you're interested in and then experiment with it. That's kind of what it is. I mean, for me, it's taking what I've experimented and then creating just like a blueprint, but creating a problem
yeah.
solving thing for it. Or I know that in this latest class I'm taking with my Manifestor community, it's really looking into creating these passive pathways. And so really as a manifestor, it's creating this thought of I can create it, set it and forget it and it'll still make me money,
Yeah.
which is something I think we all really can tap into, but it looks into,
Anymore.
yeah, exactly. Like, if I could just, sit down and still make money, I think that that's, kind of where my passions is at. Cause with your signature, which we have gone into, but you can get in your human design, it tells you what themes in your life to follow. Actually, that's something I'm going to speak about now because I think that it is helpful. But the signature themes that you have within your life are based on your type. So they're not like the inner authority we just talked about earlier, which can be different. They're
Okay.
based on your type. And so with your signature themes, with manifestors, their signature theme is peace. So as we move through things and experiment or do whatever the kind of our profile is letting us know or telling us, do we experience senses of peace or areas of peace? I mean, a lot of times, especially in this world where we're so hell bent on filling out applications and kind of doing all of these things, that doesn't bring a person peace. It brings them worry of the what if. And so a lot of the manifestor energy and that support that they get brings them peace, and they're not always running around like a chicken with their head cut off. They're
Yeah.
able to sit and rest. And so the other side of that, self of the signature is anger. And so as I go into the feelings wheel and really look at, what stems from anger or like frustration or sadness and things like that, you learn that the things that you don't want to do but have to just bring you anger. And so it's really send you down this kind of path that's not you. With the manifestors and manifesting generators, it is satisfaction. And that kind of really goes into your design of creating. Where can the things you do bring you satisfaction? A lot of times that happens at the end of a project, or, as we've kind of really learned now to have these kind of little joys. Sometimes they can bring you satisfaction in between, but it's this thought of doing and like seeing the outcome.
Yeah.
And the opposite side of that is frustration. So if you are finding yourself wanting to build, but hitting a brick wall, and really creating this frustration that's almost really similar to anger. You may find that you also responded to the wrong thing, that you may have responded earlier. And especially if you have an emotional authority, you may have responded too early and then kind of figured out that frustration has hit something that you may not have had actually responded right in the first part. But I think
Yeah.
that also lets us know how to respond. Like,
Yeah.
do I respond with this thought of, okay, yes, I want to do it. Yes, and I need this, or this, so that I don't feel the frustration as I go through. And I think that that's something that MGs and generators really would benefit from, is to know, like the projectors, is how to respond, or how to get the invitations is how to respond, so that your energy is continual and not having blockages.
Mm-hmm.
And with a projector, their signature theme is success. And so oftentimes still, in the symbolism, it's this thought of what I tapped into and what I projected is actually bringing me success. Now, success looks different for everybody.
Right.
And so noting that, but truly, when you accept the right invitations and the right recognition, it's going to lead you to success. It's going to step you forward. And the opposite side of the projector is bitterness. And so when you see projectors, and also in that thought of waiting for something, they may get bitter because they're like, well, I could have done this and I could have joined in, or I could have been there. And so projectors, and often what I say to them is like, you have to really put those blinders on, put the blinders on, because as you're going to wait, sometimes you may wait. With projectors, there's this thought within human design that they're on a 7-year cycle. And so with projectors, they may tap into something or tap into an energy, and then also spend 7 years kind of through that energy before they really kind of get to a new cycle for them. So a
Wow.
lot of times it's about kind of knowing the initiation, or noting the invitation that's coming to you, and saying, okay, can I hold this for the long? Because there are
Yeah.
also people that don't have a lot of continual energy, like generators as well. So you have, if you're tapping into somebody, you have to making sure that their energy is aligned with yours.
Yeah.
So you're projecting the right things.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then I'm sorry, what was I saying? Oh, reflectors. I am sorry. I'm going to have to look up that one there, because so reflectors being so like 1%, like so little in the population, I often
Mhm.
never work with them. I have one reflector friend. I
I was
can
gonna
actually say
ask
that.
if you know any, because I'm like, I don't think I know any reflectors.
It was very interesting when I figured out she was a reflector, but we have been friends since college, and I figured out that she was a reflector like after college when we hung
Mhm.
out, and I was like, okay, now everything is making sense. Um, it makes so much sense,
Yeah.
which is interesting because like it's great to have a reflector next to you, but they're also allowed to leave if they're reflecting stuff that they don't like. Like it's not like it's great to have a mirror next to you, but if you don't have the right things reflecting, they're gonna be like, okay, now we're leaving. We don't need to do that. Yeah, we don't need to do that. Uh, so for them, actual signature theme is surprise. And I think that that's kind of just what we talked about there too, is
Right.
they work off well when what they reflect back actually gives them surprise to say, oh, hey, this is actually good. Like,
Yeah.
I think that what I've noticed with my reflector friend is that she is so often a mirror, that, and especially within our world, that she's often not surprised of what she's seeing. Like, she's like, okay, I kind of knew that was happening. And I think that that's kind of opposite of like, you kind of manifest your own world, or you as like it's what you attract. But like for them, it's this thought that as life happens, they're able to reflect better and better.
Yeah.
And then living out, and they're not, because now I'm saying we are learning together. What I love about human design, and what I was going to say earlier, is that it's not about being an expert, because everybody's going to be different. I actually, as we moved through our course when we did decolonizing and coaching, I was like, I don't ever want to be an expert anymore. Actually, I think that lends to my 35 line of being I think, 10 years experimenter,
Mhm.
but I still don't ever want to be an expert in something. because
Yeah.
there's so many things that are happening
Yeah.
that I truly don't want to be an expert, especially if that means that I don't read anymore or that I don't act, or I think I know everything.
Exactly.
And yeah, with the not self, sorry, I'll
Yeah.
do on a tangent,
I love that.
but the not self theme of the reflector is a disappointment. And so it's still what I brought up in symbolism wise of
Yeah.
being disappointed of what you're reflecting, of constantly reflecting the negative of people that you're like, I just want to step back for the world. A lot of
Yeah.
times they can be very introverted as reflectors. And it is always a pleasant surprise when I take my friend out and she loves the area we're going to and loves like what we're going to. And I'm like, yeah, I did it. Because that means that I'm like, the area that I like is bringing up good energy. It's like
Yeah.
when you test it and you're like, all your friends are from different groups, but then they come together and then they're
Yeah.
friends still. You're like, yeah, I
Yeah.
did it. But yeah, that's kind of I really do use her as a mirror sometimes,
Mhm.
um, as her strategy because also sometimes having a conversation, I can like have it reflected back to me, and I'm like, that was out of pocket. I understand
Yeah.
that now, and seeing the errors of my ways.
Yeah. I love that. That's so
Mhm.
awesome. And wow, like seriously, thank you so much. It's just such a wealth of
You're
knowledge.
welcome.
Real quick though, I have you until
Yes.
2:30. Do you have a little more time?
Oh yeah.
You do?
You know, if I had to wrap things up, if we're giving our next year, I would say everyone, you know what, learn your human design. As we move into very, very uncertain times, human design can be an anchor. And that's kind of what I found it as is an anchor as even if I'm throwing in a little bit astrology, I have a Pisces moon, and so I am very detached in most areas. At um, human design has allowed me to have an anchor, not to the 3D actual physical,
Yeah.
but really to the self, so that I don't float away as turmoil is happening in me. And if anyone needs a reading, I'm here. I'll happily give readings. I think that using human design and then also, excuse me, in conjunction with tarot, with divination, really can allow you to path forward. I know that what I do, I also add in human design. And then if you have questions, I will do a reading. I will do a reading to say, okay, you know what? If you have questions about this area, let's see what cycle you're in this area.
Yeah.
And as we move through the cycle, you kind of figure out what you need to do. I think that also, going in deep is going to cause some change. And where can you see change as a constant? I think I said that to you before. It's always this thought of, even when we're bringing in astrology and even having fixed signs too, I often say is, where can you affix yourself to change instead of being fixed? Where can you
Mm,
direct yourself towards it? Because change is going to happen regardless if you try and fight it or not.
right.
So it's best to have all the tools you need to fight. And I think spiritually, as we move into this year, with Pluto and Aquarius, I think we can use technology as spirituality as well.
Mm,
That's another thing people should have questions on.
yeah.
If I give you any questions, but I think we had a great time. I'm gonna.
Loved it. I loved it. I loved it so much. And honestly, I would absolutely keep going. We could clearly keep going, but like I said, I will respect your time. And hey, I mean, I can always invite you back if you're open to it.
I am. I'd be happy to talk. I am
Yeah.
here. We'll do a whole other thing because I'm sure by the time you invite me back, my 3-5 is going to be on something different. I am going to change. It is going to be different, but I'm
Absolutely.
happy.
Absolutely. And I would definitely, I really wanted to get into the topic that you suggested today. I mean, like I said, if you had time, I'm open to it, but we can always bring you back for that. Go
I
ahead.
think, yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I think that the topic that I wanted to get into really is this thought of death and change. But I think as people start to learn human design, you're gonna want to have that change. So I think that that's a topic for a different day.
Yeah, absolutely. I respect that. So, Jameer, we said that All of your information is going to be in the show notes for people. So we're literally going to put everything in there. Before I let you go, though, because I like to do a rapid fire session, Jameer, are you open to
I
it?
love it. I'm
Yes.
here. Let's do
Yes.
it.
All right. All right. So rapid fire, morning person or night owl?
I know.
Mm.
Yeah, I get my energy at 2 a.m. and the message from source comes in like a lightning rod. And I've actually learned to sleep 4 hour periods
Have you?
because the messages at 2 o'clock, oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah, like rich actual gold. So I will do 2 to like maybe 6, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll work, and then I'll sleep, and then
Mm.
I'll wake up maybe like 10, as a manifestor. I like to start my day at 11.
Okay.
But yeah, no, not a prison.
I like that. I like that. I remember reading something about the 4 hour sleep cycles, and I like those. I've been experimenting with them too, so I'm glad to hear that you do that.
Yeah. It's been working out. It's rough though.
Yeah.
Everyone else around you has to agree. That's what
Yeah.
has to work.
Yeah. Right. Okay. What's a song that lifts your spirits?
Anything by Manifestor. You know, yeah, really. A tuned in Aquarius is always going to give me the energy I feel like I need. But yeah, no, I'm a real like, listen to bad bitches in the gym type of person.
Yeah.
So Megan Stallion will do it for me all.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah, just an artist, not a song.
No, that worked.
Exactly.
Period.
You gotta get a good genre.
Love it. If you could choose one other human design type to live as for a day, which would it be?
That's rough. I would do a manifesting generator. I feel like that's kind of a cop out. I still have some energy of manifesting, but it would feel nice because I'm somebody that picks up and puts it down and like
Yeah.
doesn't come back to it. I like that, having that sense of satisfaction to be like, oh, I picked it up, I finished it, and then it's done. Because for me,
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that thought of finishing would be interesting. It doesn't happen to me often. But I'm like, okay, I like it.
Okay. And then what's something about your life today that younger Jameer would be surprised by?
I think that's an interesting question. That I'm truly living my design, or that I am, I guess, really more detached.
Mm.
I think that living in my design has made me more detached. That I was anxious of it and the thought of control as a child, to be like, okay, this has got to go right, or else it doesn't. Like, I've got to keep a grasp on it. That I'd be very surprised that I'm actively now these days being like, okay, just give up. Yeah, because I think that a lot of people pleasing and the thought of really bringing cares, even astrology wise, as a Virgo. I have that thought of age, that it was really like, oh, let me stretch myself so thin that now I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
good. Yeah, it's a very kind of 180 change.
Gotcha. Okay, I love that. All right, Jameer. Well, thank you so, so much. It was so great seeing you. I'm going to talk to you again. I would love to have you back
Yes.
on. I appreciate everything about you.
Yes, maybe we'll do like a reunion episode with like Vanessa and everybody. We'll get some coaches together.
That would be such a good idea. Thank you.
Comes right off the dome, baby. Very
And I
easy.
would take it and run with it.
Exactly. Do it. Look, I'm dropping jewels. You got to collect them. You're welcome. Bye, guys.